Have you ever met someone in their 70s who seems younger, more energetic, and more mentally sharp than people 20 years younger? At first glance, it looks like genetics. But what if that isn't the whole story? What if the difference between aging quickly and aging slowly is largely determined by the habits you practice every day? Here's something fascinating. Scientists are increasingly discovering that aging isn't simply about the number of birthdays you've had. It's about what's happening inside your cells, your blood vessels, your muscles, your brain, and your metabolism. In other words, your chronological age and your biological age are not always the same. Two people can both be 60 years old on paper, yet one may have the metabolic health, strength, and cognitive function of someone in their 40s, while the other may already be struggling with fatigue, inflammation, insulin resistance, and chronic disease. So the real question isn't how old you are. The real question is, how fast are you aging? What the research shows is that lifestyle has a profound influence on biological aging. Recent studies have linked daily habits such as sleep quality, physical activity, dietary patterns, stress management, and social engagement to measurable differences in biological age markers and long-term health outcomes. In fact, researchers continue to find that healthy lifestyle behaviors can significantly influence how quickly or slowly the body ages. And here's what's really interesting. Scientists now believe aging may not happen at a perfectly steady pace. Research suggests there may be periods of accelerated biological change, particularly during midlife, making daily habits even more important during these critical years. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body is like a house. Most people think aging happens when the paint starts peeling off the outside, but that's not where the problem begins. The real issue starts behind the walls. The plumbing slowly corrodes, the electrical wiring becomes less efficient, small leaks develop that go unnoticed for years. Eventually, those hidden problems show up as visible damage. The human body works much the same way. Wrinkles, weight gain, fatigue, memory problems, and chronic disease are often the visible symptoms. The deeper causes involve inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, hormone imbalance, insulin resistance, loss of muscle mass, poor sleep, and chronic stress. The people who appear to age slower aren't necessarily lucky. More often, they've developed habits that protect these systems before problems appear. In today's video, we're going to break down the 7 habits commonly practiced by people who age remarkably well. We'll explore the science behind each habit, what's happening inside the body, and most importantly, how you can begin applying these principles in your own life starting today. Because aging is inevitable, but accelerated aging is often not. And by the end of this video, you'll have a practical blueprint to help your body stay stronger, leaner, sharper, and more resilient for decades to come. If there's one habit that separates people who age slowly from people who decline rapidly, it's this. They protect their muscle mass. And I don't mean bodybuilding, I mean preserving the metabolic engine that keeps the body strong, stable, and youthful. Here's what's really going on inside your body. After about age 30, most people begin losing muscle gradually every decade. This process is called sarcopenia, and it accelerates with age. Muscle isn't just for movement or appearance. It's one of the body's most important organs for metabolism, glucose control, hormone balance, and longevity. Think of muscle like a metabolic sponge. When you eat carbohydrates, glucose enters the bloodstream. Healthy muscle tissue absorbs that glucose efficiently and stores it as glycogen. But when muscle mass declines, your body has fewer places to store glucose. Blood sugar rises more easily, insulin levels stay elevated longer, and over time, this can contribute to insulin resistance, inflammation, and accelerated aging. A major review published in The Lancet highlighted that maintaining muscle strength and physical function is strongly associated with lower risk of disability, chronic disease, and mortality in older adults. Why strength matters more than the scale. Many people focus on weight loss as they age, but the scale can be misleading. And you can lose weight while also losing muscles, and that often makes aging worse, not better. People who age well focus on body composition, not just body weight. They aim to maintain or increase lean muscle while reducing excess visceral fat. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body as a hybrid car. Muscle is the engine that keeps the system efficient. Fat, especially visceral fat around the organs, is extra cargo weighing the car down. You don't want to remove the engine to make the car lighter. You want to keep the engine strong and reduce the unnecessary load. What the research shows, studies consistently show that strength training improves insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial function, bone density, cognitive health, and even longevity markers. Resistance exercise also stimulates the release of myokines, signaling molecules from muscle that reduce inflammation and support brain health. In other words, lifting weights is not just a fitness activity, it's an anti-aging therapy. The practical protocol. So, what do people who age slower actually do? They make strength training non-negotiable. Here's a simple, sustainable approach. Strength train 2 to 4 times per week. Focus on compound movements, squats, lunges, push-ups, rows, deadlifts, and presses. These exercises train multiple muscle groups and improve functional strength. Prioritize progressive overload. Your muscles need a reason to adapt. Gradually increase weight, reps, or resistance over time. Even small improvements matter. Eat enough protein. Older adults often underestimate protein needs. Aim for roughly 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Spread across meals. Include high-quality sources like eggs, fish, poultry, Greek yogurt, legumes, and whey protein if needed. Move daily, not just in workouts. Strength training is essential, but so is regular movement. Walking, taking stairs, gardening, carrying groceries. These micro movements help maintain muscle function and metabolic health. Don't fear getting older. Fear becoming inactive. One of the biggest myths is that decline is inevitable with age. While some changes are natural, much of the loss in strength and function comes from disuse, not aging itself. The people who age slower keep asking their muscles to work, and their bodies respond by staying stronger, more insulin sensitive, and more resilient. A simple weekly plan. Here's a practical example. Monday, full body strength workout, 30 to 45 minutes. Tuesday, brisk 30-minute walk. Wednesday, full body strength workout. Thursday, light movement, walking, stretching, mobility. Friday, full body strength workout. Weekend, stay active socially and physically, hiking, sports, long walks, chores. That's enough to create a powerful anti-aging foundation. The bottom line, people who age slower do not treat muscle as optional. They treat it as insurance for the future because muscle supports metabolism, protects the brain, stabilizes blood sugar, preserves independence, and improves time to quality of life. And the best part? It's never too late to start building it. Even people in their 70s and 80s can gain strength, improve balance, and reverse aspects of frailty with consistent resistance training. So if you take one thing from this section, let it be this. Build muscle now so your body can carry you well later. One of the biggest misconceptions about aging is that it's primarily driven by time. But from a biological perspective, aging is often accelerated by something far more important, metabolic dysfunction. And at the center of that dysfunction is a hormone called insulin. People who age slower tend to have one thing in common. They maintain better insulin sensitivity throughout life. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every time you eat carbohydrates, your digestive system breaks them down into glucose. That glucose enters your bloodstream and triggers the release of insulin from the pancreas. Insulin's job is simple. It acts like a key. It unlocks cells so glucose can enter and be used for energy. The problem begins when insulin is elevated too often for too many years. Frequent snacking, excessive sugar consumption, highly processed foods, poor sleep, chronic stress, and inactivity can all contribute to persistently high insulin levels. Over time, cells become less responsive to insulin's signal. This is called insulin resistance. The pancreas responds by producing even more insulin, and that is where many aging-related problems begin. Why insulin matters for aging. Think of insulin as a storage hormone. When insulin is elevated, your body is receiving a signal that says store energy, not burn stored energy. As a result, fat burning slows down. Visceral fat accumulates, inflammation increases, blood vessels become less healthy, and cellular repair processes become less efficient. Many researchers now view insulin resistance as a major driver behind conditions associated with accelerated aging, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver disease, cognitive decline, and reduced lifespan. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your bloodstream is a highway. Glucose represents the traffic. Insulin is the traffic controller. When everything works properly, traffic flows smoothly. But when insulin resistance develops, traffic starts backing up. The controller keeps sending more and more signals, yet congestion continues to worsen. Eventually, the entire system becomes inefficient. That's essentially what happens metabolically, the hidden aging process called glycation. There's another reason stable blood sugar matters. Excess glucose can attach to proteins throughout the body in a process called glycation. This creates harmful compounds known as advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Think of AGEs like rust developing inside the body. They damage collagen, stiffen blood vessels, impair organ function, and contribute to visible signs of aging. This is one reason chronically elevated blood sugar has been associated with wrinkles, reduced skin elasticity, and accelerated tissue aging. People who age slower tend to experience less glycation because they maintain healthier glucose levels over time. What the research shows, research consistently demonstrates that better insulin sensitivity is associated with healthier aging, lower inflammation, reduced risk of chronic disease, and improved longevity. Some of the world's longest-lived populations naturally consume diets and follow lifestyles that support stable blood sugar rather than constant glucose spikes. What's interesting is that they don't necessarily eat less food. They simply avoid overwhelming their metabolic systems, the practical protocol. So how do people who age slower keep insulin under control? They follow a few simple habits consistently. 1, stop grazing all day. Many people eat from the moment they wake up until the moment they go to bed. Every snack triggers another insulin response. Instead, aim to create clear eating windows and avoid unnecessary snacking. Allow insulin time to return to baseline between meals. 2, build meals around protein. Protein is one of the most powerful tools for blood sugar stability. A good target is 25 to 40 grams of protein per meal. Examples include eggs, fish, chicken, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, lean meat, legumes. Protein also improves satiety, making overeating less likely. 3, eat fiber before starches. This simple strategy can significantly reduce glucose spikes. Start meals with vegetables, salads, leafy greens, non-starchy vegetables. Then move to proteins and healthy fats. Save starches for last. This slows glucose absorption and improves blood sugar control. 4, walk after meals. One of the most effective anti-aging habits requires no equipment. A 10 to 15-minute walk after eating helps muscles absorb glucose, reducing post-meal blood sugar spikes. Think of it as turning on your body's glucose disposal system. 5, consider time-restricted eating. Many metabolically healthy individuals naturally create a 10 to 12-hour eating window. For example, first meal 8 a.m., last meal 6 p.m. This allows longer periods of low insulin during which repair and fat-burning processes become more active. The bottom line, people who age slower don't just focus on calories, they focus on metabolic health. They understand that stable blood sugar protects nearly every system in the body. It protects the brain, it protects the heart, it protects the liver, it protects the blood vessels, and it protects the cellular machinery that determines how quickly we age. Remember this simple principle. The more time your body spends in a state of stable blood sugar and healthy insulin sensitivity, the more opportunity it has to repair, regenerate, and function like a younger body. Most people think of stress as an emotional problem, but biologically, stress is much more than that. It's an aging accelerator. In fact, some researchers believe chronic stress may influence biological aging as powerfully as poor diet, inactivity, or sleep deprivation. People who age slower understand something important. Stress itself is not the problem. The real problem is living in a constant state of stress without allowing the body to recover. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When you encounter a threat, whether it's a charging animal, a looming work deadline, financial pressure, or relationship conflict, your brain activates a survival system known as the stress response. The adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline. Heart rate increases, blood sugar rises. Inflammation initially changes, energy is redirected toward immediate survival. This response is incredibly useful when danger is temporary. The problem is that modern stress rarely ends. Your body may still be running a survival program long after the threat has passed. And over years, that takes a tremendous toll. Why cortisol matters so much. Think of cortisol like a fire alarm. When there's a real emergency, you want it to activate. But imagine a fire alarm ringing 24 hours a day. Eventually, the constant noise starts damaging the entire system. That's what chronically elevated cortisol can do inside the body. When cortisol remains elevated for long periods, it can contribute to increased belly fat, higher blood sugar insulin resistance, muscle breakdown, poor sleep, elevated inflammation, suppressed immune function, reduced testosterone, increased cardiovascular risk. This is one reason chronic stress is associated with faster biological aging. The body simply spends too much time in protection mode and not enough time in repair mode. The stress-inflammation-aging connection. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your immune system is a security team protecting a large building. When a threat appears, the team responds appropriately. But if the alarm keeps sounding day after day, the security team never stands down. Eventually, the constant activity starts damaging the building itself. This is similar to what happens with chronic low-grade inflammation. Stress can keep inflammatory pathways activated longer than necessary. Over time, this may contribute to blood vessel damage, cognitive decline, joint problems, metabolic dysfunction accelerated, aging. In other words, unmanaged stress doesn't stay in your mind, it becomes biology. What the research shows, studies have repeatedly found associations between chronic psychological stress and markers of accelerated biological aging, including changes in telomeres, inflammation, and metabolic health. Telomeres are often compared to the protective caps on shoelaces. They help protect chromosomes during cell division. While aging is far more complex than telomere length alone, research suggests chronic stress may contribute to faster telomere shortening over time. The takeaway is simple. Your emotional environment influences your physical environment. Why resilient people age better. Interestingly, people who age slower are not necessarily people with stress-free lives. They experience challenges just like everyone else. The difference is recovery. They have habits that help the nervous system return to balance. Think of two boats crossing rough water. One boat has shock absorbers, the other does not. Both encounter waves, but one experiences far less damage. Resilience works the same way. The goal isn't to eliminate every stressor. The goal is to improve your ability to recover. The practical protocol. So what habits help people manage stress effectively? 1. Walk outdoors daily. This might be one of the most underrated anti-aging interventions available. A 20 to 30 minute walk outdoors can lower stress hormones, improve blood sugar regulation, enhance mood, improve cardiovascular health. Bonus points if you're walking in nature. Natural environments appear to help calm the nervous system and reduce perceived stress. 2, practice controlled breathing. Your breathing directly communicates with your nervous system. One simple technique: inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. Exhale slowly for 6 to 8 seconds. Repeat for 5 minutes. Longer. Exhalations encourage activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's recovery mode. 3, protect recovery time. Many people schedule work, very few schedule recovery. People who age well often have intentional periods of reading, prayer, meditation, journaling, time in nature. Meaningful conversation recovery is not laziness, it's maintenance. 4, strength train and exercise regularly. Exercise is one of the most effective stress management tools available. Paradoxically, short-term physical stress from exercise helps the body become more resilient to long-term psychological stress. This process is known as hormesis. Small, manageable challenges make the system stronger. 5, create boundaries around information overload. Many people begin and end the day consuming alarming news, social media, and constant notifications. Your nervous system was not designed to process endless streams of perceived threats. Limit unnecessary inputs that trigger chronic vigilance. A simple daily anti-stress routine. If you wanted a practical starting point, try this. Every day, 10 minutes of morning sunlight, 20 to 30 minute walk, 5 minutes of slow breathing. 1 hour before bed with reduced digital stimulation, simple, free, and profoundly effective when done consistently. The bottom line, people who age slower understand a critical truth. The body cannot repair itself efficiently while it believes it's under constant threat. That's why stress management isn't just about mental health. It's about metabolic health, it's about hormonal health, it's about cardiovascular health, and ultimately it's about longevity. Because every day you spend teaching your nervous system how to recover is a day you're helping your body shift from survival mode back into repair mode. And repair mode is where healthy aging happens. One of the biggest mistakes people make when thinking about aging is focusing only on calories. They ask, how many calories should I eat? How much weight should I lose? How little can I eat and still lose fat? But people who age slower tend to ask a different question. They ask, what information am I giving my cells? Because food is much more than fuel. Food is biological information. Every meal sends signals that influence inflammation, hormones, metabolism, mitochondrial function, and cellular repair. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every second, billions of cells are repairing damage, replacing worn-out components, producing energy, and responding to environmental signals. To do that efficiently, your body needs raw materials. Without those materials, repair becomes less effective. Over time, the gap between damage and repair begins to widen. And that gap is where accelerated aging often starts. Why nutrient density matters more than calorie density. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine you're renovating a house. You have a large construction crew ready to work, but instead of delivering quality building materials, you keep sending empty boxes. The workers show up. The project continues. But progress slows dramatically because the materials aren't there. Many modern diets create the same problem. People consume plenty of calories but insufficient nutrients. The body receives energy but lacks the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, amino acids, and healthy fats needed for optimal repair. This is why someone can be overweight and undernourished at the same time. The body isn't simply asking for calories, it's asking for nutrients. The inflammation connection. One of the major drivers of aging is chronic low-grade inflammation. Scientists sometimes refer to this phenomenon as inflammaging. Unlike acute inflammation, which helps heal injuries, chronic inflammation quietly damages tissues over time. This can affect blood vessels, brain cells, joints, liver function, hormonal balance, metabolic health. People who age slower tend to consume foods that naturally help regulate inflammation rather than constantly fueling it. What the research shows, research consistently links dietary patterns rich in whole foods, vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, fish, and healthy fats with lower rates of chronic disease and improved longevity. Many of the world's longest-lived populations consume diets that are remarkably nutrient-dense, despite being relatively simple. What's interesting is that these populations often eat foods that support the body's natural repair systems rather than overwhelming them with highly processed ingredients. In other words, longevity diets are often less about restriction and more about nourishment. The anti-aging plate. So what does eating for longevity actually look like? A practical approach is to build meals around these core components. 1. High-quality protein. Protein provides amino acids that help maintain muscle tissue, immune function, hormone production, cellular repair. Excellent options include eggs, fish, Greek yogurt, poultry, lean meats, legumes. Aim to include protein at every meal. Remember, you don't rebuild tissues from carbohydrates, you rebuild tissues from amino acids. 2. Colorful vegetables. Different plant pigments contain different protective compounds. Think of vegetables as nature's pharmacy. Aim to regularly include leafy greens, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, bell peppers, carrots, red cabbage. The wider the color variety, the broader the range of beneficial compounds. 3. Healthy fats. Many people still fear fat because of outdated nutrition advice, but healthy fats play critical roles in brain function, hormone production, cell membrane integrity, inflammation regulation. Excellent sources include extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish. Your brain is largely made of fat. Feeding it appropriately matters. 4. Polyphenol-rich foods. Polyphenols are plant compounds that appear to support healthy aging pathways. Examples include berries, green tea, cocoa, pomegranates, herbs, spices. Think of polyphenols as protective compounds that help the body manage oxidative stress, one nutrient many people overlook. As people age, magnesium becomes increasingly important. Magnesium participates in hundreds of biochemical reactions involving energy production, sleep quality, blood sugar control, muscle function, nervous system regulation. Foods rich in magnesium include pumpkin seeds, almonds, spinach, dark leafy greens, beans. Some individuals may also benefit from supplementation under professional guidance, a simple longevity eating framework. Instead of obsessing over complicated diet rules, try this. At each meal, fill half the plate with vegetables, include a palm-sized serving of protein, add healthy fats, minimize ultra-processed foods. Repeat consistently. That's often more powerful than any trendy diet, the 80% rule. People who age slower rarely pursue perfection. Instead, they pursue consistency, and occasional dessert isn't the problem. A consistently poor dietary pattern is. Focus on getting most meals right most of the time. That's where long-term results come from. The bottom line, people who age slower understand that every meal is either supporting repair or increasing the workload on the body. They don't eat solely to satisfy hunger. They eat to nourish the systems that keep them healthy for decades. They provide the body with the nutrients needed to maintain muscle, regulate inflammation, support mitochondrial function, and protect the brain. Because aging well is not simply about avoiding disease. It's about creating an internal environment where repair can outpace damage for as long as possible. And if you're finding value in this breakdown so far, consider subscribing. Every day, I share evidence-based strategies to help you improve metabolic health, increase energy, and support healthy longevity naturally. The next habit may be the most underestimated of all. In fact, it has nothing to do with food, exercise, or supplements, yet it consistently shows up in some of the longest-lived populations on Earth.